There are plenty of cars you look at on the road and think, man, I'll never be able to afford that. But with a good chunk of German cars out there, the thinking is that I won't be able to afford it right now. You see, depreciation is the ultimate entry point for guys like you and me to be able to afford cars like this after they've gone down in price after a few years of being out. And what you're looking at next to me is the new depreciation god, the new BMW 7 Series. And you may be wondering why though. Well, this is the coolest car out right now in my opinion in terms of the technology. This is literally like the ultimate flex mobile with actually good driving performance. And in a few years, you'll be able to buy this for the price of like a run-of-the-mill Volkswagen. Let's check it out. As per usual with BMWs of late, the design hasn't been the most universally accepted to say the least. And of course, this is because of the large kidney grille. And if you haven't seen my Alpina XB7 review, be sure to check that out later. But this is basically a sedan version of that car in terms of the front end. It's definitely not my favorite 7 Series design. In fact, I think peak 7 Series is the M760 Li from like 4 or 5 years ago with the twin turbo V12. That car was like peak 7 Series in terms of design. But honestly, I'm not crazy offended by the way this car looks. The 7 Series is supposed to be the alternative Rolls Royce, and so it's supposed to have an executive, gentlemanly aesthetic, and I think the new i7/7 Series still accomplishes that. It looks pretty expensive, it's pretty sleek, there isn't a whole lot going on, it's not overdoing the design, I feel like. And the coolest party trick is this illuminated kidney grille, which you can really only see at night, but I've definitely broken a few necks when driving this thing around at night when it's just like illuminated, kind of looks like a spaceship, just a little bit. Looks like a nice, expensive car. I'm just gonna open this door right here. Well, BMW is gonna open the door, and I'm just gonna go inside. And yes, all of the doors can do that. The interior is definitely what makes this the coolest car on the market, depending on what you like, but you can't deny that this interior is tech heaven. Screens, screens, screens is the name of the game here. We've got a big old curved touchscreen right here for your gauge cluster and your media. Then we've got more screens in the back. That's right, there are screens on the door handles, and then the Mac Daddy screen is just chilling up there, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So the signature touch of the new 7 Series is the polygon pattern LED lighting strip that spans the entire front end of the interior, and it actually can change colors based on what mode you're in the car. And this BMW has many modes. We've got personal, sport, efficient, expressive, relaxed, theater, digital art. So if I change to sport mode right here, it's gonna change to this cool red color, which I think looks pretty dope. And we also have these LED strips up here for more ambient LED lighting, and you can really only see it at night, but that's what these lines are up here in the moonroof. Now, will all of this look cool in 5 to 6 or 10 years? I'm honestly not sure, but I honestly personally dig it, and I think this is one of the few German automobiles that can match the nighttime vibes of a Mercedes-Benz, which has normally been like the king of interiors, especially at night. We all know that something that Mercedes-Benz owners like to do is post Instagram story videos at night of them driving their Mercedes-Benz with the cool ambient lighting going throughout all the interior. It kind of gives spaceship vibes. We finally have a BMW that can definitely compete with that. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've definitely got a bit of a grandpappy spec in terms of the interior colors and trim. You know, we've got the beige, whitish going on. We even have these carpet floors down here. But overall, in terms of materials and build quality and feel, it feels like a $120,000+ car. It doesn't feel like a coach-built Pagani in terms of every single thing you touch feeling like an art piece per se, but I think it's a well-built car. But let's check out the coolest part of the interior, which is the back. Now, before we get to the #1 party trick of the car, let's talk about just the backseat experience. This is definitely a car that feels nice to be chauffeured in, which I have got to experience one time. I had someone chauffeur me for like an hour-long drive, and it was quite nice. So the cool thing about this car is that if you're in the other side of the back seat, you can hit a recline button and the front passenger seat goes all the way up, and you have this little kickstand that comes out, and you can just be chilling like a villain. We also have these screens in the door handles to control media for the #1 party trick, climate control. You can control some of the Apple CarPlay features, like if there's music playing, you can change tracks, things like that. Super comfortable, pillows, pretty much everything you would want for a backseat luxury experience. But let's get to the cool part, shall we? So if we go to this door control panel here, hit display and hit fold down. Firstly, all of the shades are gonna come up like so. And then this massive 31-inch 8K TV just drops down from the ceiling, giving you one of the coolest passenger experiences you could possibly have in a new car today. Unfortunately, you need an eSIM setup for this whole thing to work, so unfortunately I can't actually watch Netflix or Prime Video or anything like that. But if you have the eSIM set up and this car is connected to a network, that is something you can do. But it's essentially a Fire TV UI back here, because there must be some sort of Fire TV installed in the car. And yeah, this is probably one of the coolest ways to have a backseat experience. Not to mention, you have the USB-C and HDMI port up here if you want to hook up another device like a PlayStation or a Nintendo or something like that, and use the screen for your own stuff. It's pretty cool. And although the 7 Series comes in both gas-powered and electric form, this is the i7, the electric version. So what better way to chill and let your car charge than by watching some cool stuff on your 31-inch 8K screen in your car. Now, the reason you buy this car outside of all the crazy tech features is the driving experience. Now, it's a BMW, so it's quite capable in terms of its performance. It's got 530 horsepower from a dual motor electric setup, and it's quite the little zipper, as you can see right here. It can sprint this land yacht from 0 to 60 in about 4.5 seconds, which is not bad for how big this thing is. And with it being electric, the torque is, like I said, practically instantaneous. It gets up. But the way this car just absolutely glides in comfort mode is what you really want this car for. This is the kind of car to justify having the most back-breaking, uncomfortable, impractical sports car for the weekend in addition to this, because the way this car just absolutely floats and glides in comfort mode, it's nothing short of rejuvenating. The air suspension allows this car to absolutely breeze along the road, and there hasn't been a single New Jersey or New York, which I'm currently at, bump that I've been over that has kind of given this car any kind of trouble. It just handles uneven roads and surfaces amazingly. Like I said, this is essentially the budget Rolls Royce, so it's got an experience very similar to that. Honestly, this might be one of the most comfortable electric cars you can buy. And speaking of electric cars, I think the i7 versus 760 gas-powered debate is quite interesting. And me personally, I feel like the electric motor complements this chassis, this kind of car, a lot more, especially for performance, because you can kind of just zip around. You can really push yourself into corners instead of having to wait for turbos to spool up or for you to hit a certain RPM for you to really get that push from the motor. You can kind of just breeze around and do so in near complete silence, minus all of the wah, 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 all those like fake electric noises. It's a pretty cool experience. I feel like if I were to pick between the i7 and the 760 with the twin turbo V8, I'd probably pick this, because it's not like you're getting a screaming, howling V8 like you do in some of the M cars. It's kind of a more subtle, soft, quiet experience. They want it to be like a Rolls Royce, not too abrasive in terms of the sound. So you might as well just go with the electric version, especially if noise is a thing for you. And on the topic of range, which is typically an uncomfortable talking point when it comes to a lot of electric vehicles, you could expect 300-ish miles of range on a full charge if you actually drive this thing at proper highway speeds. If you're an absolute animal and just always gunning it on the throttle, always in sport mode, you might be closer to like 270, 280, something like that. It's not bad. The range is actually pretty solid. But I think the beauty of this new 7 Series is that you could get the 760 version with the V12 and pretty much have the same experience from a technology and feature set standpoint. You're not going to really miss anything outside of the more instantaneous torque. And in fact, the 760 is actually quicker to 0 to 60 with that twin turbo V8 because it's lighter. You don't have to worry about having the electric batteries. So that car is actually faster from 0 to 60. Just slightly. It's 4 seconds to 60 versus 4.5. So not a world-changing difference, but something to note. But me personally, I'd still probably go with the i7 versus the 760. I think it just makes more sense for this kind of car. Might as well just go all the way with tech. So now we're in assisted driving plus mode because we're on the freeway. It's a great time to use the feature. And yeah, I don't have my hands on the steering wheel. I don't have my hands on the brake pedal or the throttle pedal, and it's just going. And it's gonna make sure that I'm keeping my eyes firmly on the road, making sure I'm not distracted or looking at other things, looking at my phone, which is nice. Also, I didn't really talk about the sound system much, but the sound system in here is really good. I mean, it's pretty much the same system you're getting in the iX that I reviewed earlier this year on the channel. Be sure to check out that video if you haven't already, after this one, of course. But yeah, really solid sound system, a lot of bass, really good fidelity, and you've got this like 3D mode that kind of gives you like a 3D surround sound experience. That's pretty cool. Lots of fun options to play with in the settings for that, but overall, I'd say it's a solid 8.5 to 9 out of 10 sound system. But of course, this car's 150 grand, so you'd kind of expect that, right? Let's just let that door close on its own. See, this door is kind of finicky, I'm not gonna lie. It doesn't always close when you push the button, so I'm gonna try to close it right now. Okay, now it doesn't. Cool. But yeah, this car is exciting for 2 reasons. First reason is that you could probably reasonably afford this car depending on your situation in like 3 to 4, maybe 5 years, which isn't too long from now. Secondly is that BMW, I feel like, is pushing the envelope in terms of making electric cars more fun and interesting. A lot of EVs, I'm not gonna say any names, but are going for a very soulless, plain Jane, minimalistic experience, and that's just boring. But cars like this are very interesting in terms of the tech and how it's honestly just fun to use. And I feel like it'll also be pretty interesting to see how long you can keep this thing on the road, because the more tech you have in the car, the more tech that can fail. But hey, if you own one of these, let me know how the experience has been for you. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for future content like this. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Time to go live the luxury life for another day and a half. Oh man, the seat is way too far forward. Okay, never mind. See, I thought I was gonna make that cool, but it did not, it was not cool. Got a plan for these things, you know?